Okay, folks, good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Tuesday, February 11, 2025. I'm going to jump around between a couple of items in order to give you the best possible understanding of my current understanding of jurisdiction and how to inoculate ourselves, build a case before they approach us, and before we get into any more adhesion contracts or things that are going to cause us trouble down the road. If we had children or grandchildren we wanted to educate, we could certainly help them by letting them know these pieces of information before they get into their adult life. The most important thing, I believe, to understand as far as to help any officer of the United States, legislative, executive, or judicial, is the function of the passport. There's no reason that I ever thought I needed a passport to walk around these lands. But I'm going to give you some insight, perhaps, about what the naval forces of the world, going all the way back to, let's say, the Phoenicians. There was a law of the sea, there was an admiralty law, there was a way that the world functioned, and it was different on the land than it was on the sea. So when someone pulled into port, a boat pulls into port, I was reading the mail manual, and do you know that a captain of a ship, within a certain limited time, I'm not sure, I don't think it was 24 hours, I think it was shorter than that, something like 2 hours when he gets into port, he's got to account for all the mail and deliver it. So they take this kind of stuff seriously. And the military, whether it be the Marines, the Army, the Navy, now the Air Force, they are the government. And in my view, the entire United States Army is supposed to be at my disposal. And I'm in the process of asking them, because I really can't command them, I can ask them to do their duty. No one can make them do their duty. I'm going to ask them to do their duty. But I have to show them that I know that they have a duty to perform to me. So the King of England, the King of Great Britain, who claimed to be the King of France, which how there could be two kings of France, two guys were, it's just like there's two Republic of Texas right now. Both people think they're the Republic of Texas. I don't know which one's the Republic of Texas. So one says they are, same with the King of England. He claimed to be the King of France, but there was King Louis, I think the 14th, during the Revolutionary War, who loaned us the money. So when someone shares that maybe the Great Britain, the King of Great Britain, financed both sides of the war, I think the bankers did. That's probably true. But they were the bankers to the kings, to the governments. So the government, the seat of government in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, the seat of government is the government of the United States. The original United States of America is our country. When any of the documentation, the laws, codes, regulations say within the United States, that's the United States of America. That's geographic. Probably within the United States also means Puerto Rico and Guam and all those other places. And in the United States is for sure Guam, Puerto Rico, and those other places. But in the United States, as Glenn talked about earlier, is not in this state. Any questions so far? You following me? Everybody's with me?
We're with you.
Because I don't want to lose, because if you get lost, stop. We'll say, okay, let's get you back on the road so we all can, keep going. Because This is a result of, of course, everyone's whole life, everything we know is an accumulation of people we've met, places we've been, and things we've learned or read, experienced. So the passport, I thought I only needed it to travel internationally. Well, that's true. How many stars, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, when one sees international jurisdiction, how many stars indicate international jurisdiction? So either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Who can tell me how many stars are on the District of Columbia flag?
3.
But guess what the answer is?
6.
To international. No, it's 3.
3. 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom.
Which is the
I don't
City
think
of
so.
London, Vatican
Okay, maybe
City,
it's 3.
which is the Washington D.C., the City of London, and Vatican City.
Right, but that, and this is the, we live our short lives. These people who have, been connected and loaded for years and have armies at their disposal and billions of current dollars, they live in a world that thinks in terms of centuries. So I began to think in terms of centuries. The century is about how long my people have been on these lands, why we came over, what we were interested in. And then in the process of this torment that we all know many of the current government people put upon us, whether it be for malicious reasons or monetary and greed or control, manipulation, who knows what their motivations are until they reveal them. But I learned that some of my forefathers were in the Revolutionary Army. They joined. But what confused me was they were actually ministers. So why would a minister join the army? There's some information that talks about there's a certain term they use, the pulpits. Many of the men that were in the revolutionary militias were leaders of the churches because they didn't like to have tyrannical government oppressing them and killing, murdering, and doing all the things that are in the Declaration of Independence, the grievances we brought forth. So try to think in terms of centuries when we think about what's going on right at the moment, why it's happening. So why do we need the passport? Why is this a shield? Glenn can quote the safe conduct violation. It's a safe conduct violation. Worldwide, every government issues passports to their citizens and their subjects. Why? Because their subject or their citizen, when he or she's traveling in the realm of another sovereign government, they promise each other protection. Now, if we're at war with a sovereign, if one sovereign's at war with another sovereign, then any one of the other sovereign would be put into a position of prisoner of war, perhaps, or expelled. It would be a diplomatic issue. So, in this process, I learned I have to carry my passport. I don't want to. I'm in the process of getting a passport card. The reason I'm getting a passport card is it's smaller. It's right in the wallet, in the typical wallet. And the United States, which is the seat of government, issues this passport. I think it's blue because it represents what jurisdiction? Maritime and Admiralty, correct. So, here's one thing that I think is true. These are my current understanding. I'm always willing to be corrected. I don't take any offense if anyone can ever correct me, please. The sooner the better. My current understanding, all process for crime and civil is issued in maritime jurisdiction today. Unless you're in a common law court like Glenn conducts, or that we, the people, should be conducting. Why is that a negative? Why was Joe able to be put in prison for 4 years and could find no way out? So when I was in jail, my question wasn't that I was there as much as how did they do this to me? And what I chose to do was to wait them out and watch how they continued to conduct themselves until such time as they showed me their cards. 1, 2. Every couple months they'd show me another card because I refused to be coerced. I could have left at any time. Anytime. I did. Because freedom was more important to me than the long term. And understanding how. I didn't know when I moved from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which isn't really the Commonwealth, that's the term the government uses. I would not use that term. I would use the term Pennsylvania State. As I'm reading certain documents, it turns out that I'm an actual small c citizen of Pennsylvania under the Northwest Ordinance, interestingly enough. If you've never read the organic law, the 4 founding documents, you can contact Glenn, me, or Darren. We will send you the correct grammar, how it's written. I took a lot of time for my own benefit. While I'm in jail, I had my poor sister send me all sorts of stuff to jail, like it was torturing her, because I was like, I need this, I need that. And that phone rang now. When people call me from jail, I cringe. Press 1 and we accept the call. So my poor sister was a saint. So I put together, so I don't know if the government does it maliciously or if people are lazy or AI is doing it, but when we go, most documents you read online on the organic law, this Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union of 1777, which that government started operating June 21st, 1778, after New Hampshire, the 9th state, ratified. And then there is the Northwest Ordinance and then the Constitution. Now, I'm still trying to concentrate on what is the difference between the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the United States of America. The problem is there's also, I think, 2 more in 1871 that became the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the United States of America. I'm going towards jurisdiction to understand how things are written determines the jurisdiction. In my mind, it's called the law of the case. Now, there are other ways to determine the definition of those words, but one way is the law of the case. I noticed that every single criminal charge that the municipality wrote against the name was in all capital letters. And then I noticed when I was in county jail, and they gave me certain documents when I left the jail the first time, they had changed the way the name was written to upper and lower case with a middle initial. Law of the case. As I'm sitting in jail, I'm watching a PBS special, Charleston, South Carolina. There's going to be a slave auction this next Saturday, and there were bills printed up to advertise a certain slave woman, and her name was Lucy. Guess how her name was styled? Everyone got 100 on that test. So, everybody that came through would show me their paperwork in jail. all caps, all caps. This municipality, that municipality, this municipality. When I'm in the courtroom, at some point when they're ready to lower my charges and give me time served for false felonies that a police officer was ordered to sign a judge's name for a fake warrant, and then they took me to jail based on that and prosecuted me for 2 felonies under a false warrant that a cop signed a judge's name. The judge didn't even know he signed it. It was an out-of-town judge. I've asked for that judge's signature. He refuses to give it to me because it will be damning evidence. So I'm in jail. Yeah.
Have you, in any of your studies, seen a Constitution for the United States of America? I see the Constitution of.
Yes, I actually did today, believe it or not. Before we came here at the house, I was reading the Rhode Island agreement to ratify and it said, the Constitution for, the Constitution of the United States of America, but it was written at the top in all caps. So as I'm reading this document right here from the Senate, and I think I got a clue, and I need help because I'm not the brightest bulb in the room. This is the Senate document, the Constitution of the United States. In it, in 1789, on Wednesday, March the 4th, the Congress is meeting in the city of New York. It's a convention now the government's just started. They're ready to go. Everybody's in. Back the year before, 88, New Hampshire, the 9th, they set a date, March 4th next year. We're going to get together, we're going to elect the president, and this Constitution, we're proceeding. But because they had done the Northwest Ordinance, and they knew they had all this land now that was owned by the Congress, run by the Congress, owned by the people, but it's really owned by the government, but that was the people at the time, which was why the Founding Fathers put all these limitations on whatever government they created, because they were creating a monster. They knew it. They said, we have to, but we're going to do our best to give you the bit, the bridle, what you need to keep them under control. Slowly but surely, the bar members, through the maritime and admiral jurisdiction, have conned us, bringing the law of sea onto the land, and that goes to the maritime jurisdiction. So, here, 1789, they're about to send the 12 amendments out to the states, because everybody had a gentleman's agreement. We're only doing this if we get to do the amendments. We're only going forward if you send out the amendments that have to be ratified. And everybody understood why that was important. 10 came back. But this is when they sent the 12 out. And it says resolved, and I'll just skip to the 2 phrases I'm going to focus on are amendments to the Constitution of the United States. Amendments to. So, the Constitution, there are amendments to the Constitution of the United States. Then a little later, it says articles. Now the first one said amendments. 2. There's amendments to the Constitution of the United States. The next paragraph says articles, in addition to, comma, an amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. So, the Constitution of the United States of America, it says they're making an amendment, articles in addition to an amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. So, okay, so then the third piece of the puzzle, a couple lines later, it says, pursuant to the 5th article of the original Constitution. So it's almost like we've got 3 things going on here. The word Constitution happens 3 times in 6 sentences or so, and they're all different. But they knew, because they're bright people, exactly what they were trying to convey.
Well, they were there then.
Yes?
And they were contemporary with all this stuff.
Right, and it was as clear as day, right? But these people have muddled the maritime. I doubt I needed a passport to go from Pennsylvania as a citizen to New Jersey especially, but how about out west before it became a state? How about going to the territory of Arizona? You shouldn't. But by then you did, meaning when the Arizona territory, well, when the territory became a state, which we don't even know if it's a real state, it probably isn't, right? But for all intents and purposes, if I go to Arizona, I need to know the Northwest Ordinance, or I need to have my passport, because the passport instantly gives me the protection.
Can I ask a question real quick? Okay, please.
Well, you know, now I've noticed the police shows coming back on, Live PD, you know, fugitive Mexican, or fugitive warriors, or this new program that's like, because they want to bring in the police state, has been their, you know, goal all along, and now it's like, now people are cheering for the biometric police state. You know, to identify criminals and to keep those illegals out and blah, 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 blah. Anyways, one of the shows I was watching last night, the guy, he was in some kind of bar, and his boat was docked. He had like a 40-foot.
It was on a wharf or something, tied up to a dock?
Yeah, and the bar owner had a problem with him, and they asked him, you know, you can't come in here anymore. And so the sheriff showed up, and he wanted to identify himself, because they want you to identify yourself, even though there's no crime being committed. You know, it's just they're always fishing, and he ended up going back to his boat and getting a passport for the guy. The guy ran it, and he had warrants somewhere, and they ended up sending a SWAT unit on his boat and taking him out and tased him. And
So, okay, not every pet is created equal.
That's what I'm saying.
That's why we were talking about the stars.
Yeah.
My understanding is people who get their birth certificate certified or apostilled and send it in, they get a 3-star passport. That entitles them to international jurisdiction. If one gets their birth certificate authenticated, it will either come back 4 or 5 stars. My understanding is a 5-star is related to one's understanding of being on the land, possibly having posterity of some sort. You have to give them a reason why you're not a threat to the United States.
Also, your parents can't be American citizens.
on the application, your parents can't be American citizens. You can't be an American citizen also.
Actually, the phraseology is important. American citizen, I think I would qualify as that. I do not qualify
United States citizen.
as a U.S. or United States citizen or citizen of the United States. That brings me to the point of what I wanted to make, which has now become more clear in my mind today. We have land, territorial jurisdiction, and municipal in law, okay? Land, territorial, municipal. My understanding is all civil law is municipal. Growing up, I thought a municipality was a small town. Small town, small town, small town. Little did I know, no, municipality is the old Roman government attacking me from Rome. the municipality of Rome. So, how does a municipal governmental authority style their letters? Only one way.
All caps.
Correct.
Really?
So they issue, even though this is a territorial document, guess what it's issued in? It's issued in the authority, under the authority of the municipal government. The municipal government is located in Washington, D.C., and that is extended now all the way from D.C. down to the municipality of Bedford. I think that's where we are today. I could be wrong, but I think we're in Bedford. That municipality had to be incorporated. That municipality had to be given its authority from the state, which created a political, they described a political subdivision called, what county are we in right now? Tarrant. This is not the original Tarrant County. The land is. Remember when the sheriff used to be the highest law in the land?
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, he still is.
Not in New Jersey, he's not. They've taken it completely away. He can be jailed.
How
Or
did they take it away?
the state legislature in 1947 wrote a new constitution taking it away. It's unbelievable. So I wanted to know how they were doing this to me. I knew they could. I grew up the whole time knowing I'm living in a police state. We used to, for fun, refer to I kind of coined this phrase, and my friend would pick it up when he saw a police officer. He would say, "There go the Romans."
The centurions.
Municipal. Okay, so now how does the King of England today, with the bankers and the ecclesiastical church, whether it's Mormon or Catholic or Buddhist or whoever in charge in whatever country it is, there's always a church of sorts. It has to do with our breath that they want to control. And our body is on the territory, which is the small t. The big T is owned under this Constitution by the Congress. So what they've done, in my view, is they've converted through the bar, they've basically put insulation in between us and the land. So when we're like saying, Joe, why don't I have electricity power to be a land animal? Why? What is wrong? What's the insulation?
You've been disconnected.
The Holy Spirit just said, correct. So we've been disconnected. So we're like, what do I have to do? Have you ever seen those when one busts a plug on the end of a lamp? You buy this little thing that has these two metal prongs that you can make it work by piercing the plastic. That's what this does. This pierces the plastic, and when the Leo continues to bother me, guess who gets electrocuted? It's no longer it's me, it's them. I'm grounded. I'm grounded. I'm on the ground. I'm not on the sea. I'm not in the air. I'm grounded. All right, so when I'm in who runs the territorial jurisdiction, and always has since the original Constitution? It's just they got greedy and wanted everything. There's two choices, the Vatican or the King of England. Who runs the territorial government?
Vatican?
Negative. the British Empire in America runs the territorial government. They were subcontracted as part of the Treaty of Peace, where we granted them a right to operate under the Constitution. Remember the original 13th Amendment? Our forefathers smelled the rats trying to get into the government, to Congress, so that they could become agents of the crown. And the municipal government, which the City of London, I believe, existed back when. We know the Vatican existed back when. So who can tell me what the original, where the capital of the United States stands right now? What hill, what city was the name of that Maryland city prior to, say, 1750? What name, what was the name of it? Maryland. Starts with an R. 4 letters. It absolutely was Rome.
Wow. Does Rome have 4 letters?
Yeah, R-O-M-E.
Well, wonders never cease.
So, what does that tell me as I'm roasting in the heat? Not as bad as you, Joe. It was hot, though, but nothing like you're telling me. I'm in jail, and I'm trying to figure out how they did to me what they did. And they weren't done. As I'm sitting there, because I refused to give jurisdiction to the, in your case, district court judge, I said I refused to even leave the jail cell. They came and hauled me out by force. They said, we're going to hurt you if you don't go, so I did go. I didn't know enough. I knew one thing, do not give them jurisdiction. But I still had to go, and so at that first hearing, after the second felony arrest, because at the first felony arrest, the judge, based on what I had learned from Glenn and Charlie, he threw up his hands. I was arrested for trespassing on a public place at a church service, and he threw up his hands because I was spouting some of this sovereign stuff, and he threw up his hands. He says, I don't know what to do. He was a nice guy. He was trying to think righteously, and the system wouldn't permit him to do it. He had just been put on the bench. He was demoted, by the way, after this event, back to family court. So as they took me downstairs and they brought me the papers, which had my upper and lower case name on it with a middle initial, that indicated what kind of jurisdiction? Upper and lower case. Right now we're dealing with 2. Territorial, municipal, or maritime. Maritime, municipal, same thing. So I was arrested in maritime, taken to the county, and now they said, oh, you have breath. See, in every maritime court, there's nothing alive. Nothing. It's dead. It's dead.
It's cargo.
It is cargo. Now, I'm still in maritime jurisdiction when it deals with, no, maybe not. Admiralty is dealing with the seaman's wages, is the contract, that's admiralty. But you can't get admiralty in any of these courts. Not even none of the courts, as far as I can tell. It doesn't exist until, actually, if you go to if you go to a federal court, then you're sitting in admiralty. It still has the gold fringe flag. So now I'm in jail. This first arrest for the felony, And they said, you have to come back, here's your papers, go home, come back in 2 months. I'm sitting there all chained up, hand and foot. I said, no, I won't. I said, if this means I can't go to my home church, I will stay in jail for 2 months till this date. This sheriff department people leave, come back a half hour later. We were ordered to throw you out of jail. So they picked me up. This is the first arrest, first felony arrest. They picked me up out of the wheelchair because, I couldn't, I was cuffed. And they had to roll me around because otherwise I'd be walking around the whole place like this. They took me out, dumped me into a sheriff's vehicle, drove me to a bus stop. I was still handcuffed foot, dressed in my prison uniform, which I had gone in. This goes to the jurisdiction. They arrested me in Maritime. They tried to tell me, now that I had breath, they were trying to get me to agree to come back in territorial jurisdiction under the upper and lower case. The charges were still done in Maritime, but now they had a breath, a slave with breath. Now I had to talk. Now they were trying to get my agreement. I refused. They threw me out. So now, a few months later, I was arrested a second time because I refused, because I said, I'm not leaving here. They forcibly kicked me out. As far as I was concerned, I had no contract. So the next time, they took me in now. Now I go before the judge, the second judge, district judge, and they say, after 10 days sitting there, I refuse to go talk to them. They make me go. And she asked me a couple questions. I indicate that, she said, what day is it? I said, it's Freedom Day. She said, what year is it? I said, well, what I can tell you is it's the 246th year of the independence of New Jersey and the United States of America. And then she said, who's the President of the United States? I said, I honestly don't know whether, because in my mind it had just been that questionable election. I said, I'm not sure. I can't tell you. And I also can't tell you who the President of the United States of America is either. So there's a President of the United States, but I don't think there's a President of the United States after this further study now. There's the Office of the President, who operates as the President of the United States. The man, Donald Trump, is the President of the United States of America, the country. All right, I'm now there because she, oh, you know what she said, this witch? She said, because you won't show up for court, I know you're not going to show up for court, I'm going to sentence you to a mental evaluation for competency to stand trial. I can't give you bail. We don't have bail in the state of New Jersey, in this state. You're either released on your own recognizance or they lock you up till trial. So they didn't let me go. She sent me to a mental institution. So why does that matter? Because when they finally came to take me to the mental institution for my evaluation, whether I'm competent to stand trial for stalking a minister at a church that I was there before he was there. And it was on public property. Second, went to the church to vote to get people who would stop arresting me. So, the case, the style, the letters. We read these documents, it will tell you a lot when you read these documents. So they take me, they have a bill of lading, a transportation order to take me to the mental institution. Everything's in all uppercase.
Cargo again.
I'm now cargo, I'm in transportation. Who can tell me what that word transportation means? It's taking a prisoner to a penal basically a prison. It's to penalize someone, take them to jail, to prison. The word transportation literally is for prisoners. You look,
The penalty is under the penal code. The penalty is only for violation of a contract, correct?
I can't say, I don't know that. I'd have to look it up in the law dictionary. So we have about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to get to, so I'm kind of just sharing with you the information so you can, as you walk about in your life and you're attacked by these guys, get your passport. Carry your passport. Don't leave home without it. Better than an American Express card. Safe conduct. Felony. Glenn will tell you it's a felony for them to do anything to you. Oh, I did want to mention, remember, you know why that man could have had issues?
Well, they could have cross-compared. They could have used the information on his passport and then pulled up something in there.
Yeah, but obviously the warrants against the name, he hadn't done what he needed to do. Because I have warrants out against me right now, and the local, quote, sheriff, who's the municipal police chief, refuses to obey the warrant. Because he needed to have the flag with no fringe, which took over a year to get the local city council to replace the gold fringe flag with the flag of the country, not the flag of the corporate seat of government, the corporate flag, the commercial flag. So where is the only place under common law, under the law of the original Constitution? By the way, I claim the original Constitution. If they want a date, I'll give it to them. September 17, 1787. That's my Constitution. I use the words original Constitution. It's just a simple way to tell them I'm an original. An aboriginal. Where is maritime and admiralty jurisdiction coexistent between a de jure state and the United States? The only place is where the tide rises and falls, rises and falls. In that, a beach, well, if I'm above the high water mark, if there's seaweed behind me, either person, the United States or the state, can prosecute me. If I'm in the water, below the low water mark, I can go, state, you can't touch me. Only the feds can touch me. If I'm above the seaweed, where at the last high tide, I can tell the United States, you can't touch me. Only the state can touch me.
You're into and out of the tidal zone.
Right. So a wharf would be where the tide ebbs and flows. You see? So that's where this man was. Okay? So back to the style of the letters. So I go in, I'm there 3 months. I didn't know at the time. The judge sold a bond for 90 days or 180 days. I'm not sure which. They take me in, they ask me the questions. It's a man from India doing the psychiatry. He writes and again, I'm trying to learn how they can do it. I already know, I could leave any time, literally any time. I chose not to. In order to understand what was happening, how they could keep the whole state in a state of fear, trepidation. He had to break the bonds. So the psychiatrist, I didn't know it at the time, I saw this later, and what he said, you're not fit. Basically, when the 91st day came, I knew he didn't let me go as being fit, competent, sending me back to the county jail. He said, you're not fit He did say this actually he said, you're not willing to work with a court-appointed attorney, and that makes you incompetent. Because I'm not willing to work with a court-appointed attorney. By that time, it had been about 14, 15 months total. So another 90, and I'm now a holdover. Now I start talking to a white American psychiatrist, the second time. And this guy asked me the same questions. We get to the bottom line, and I said, he says, we can hold you here indefinitely. I said, okay. I said, you're already committing federal crimes. It's only going to get worse for you. He said, no, I indicated to him, I said, I had gotten the report by that time, and I read him the report. I think he might have provided it to me at that point. And I said, see here where it says I didn't agree to work with a public defender, a bar member? I said, I guess you're going to have to keep me here because I still refuse. I refuse. So keep me here. If that's what you're going to do, you go right ahead. Lo and behold, on the 180th day, here comes the sheriff's. Back I go to jail, knowing now that there was the 180-day bond to the day, Joe. And guess who had to pay the bill? This is an important piece of information. Who had to pay the bill at the state hospital? They tried to get me to pay it 20 different times. Here, sign this. I said, I'm not signing that. Who was responsible to pay the bill?
The judge.
No. County. Which, yes, it was the judge, because she ordered me. You're correct in that regard, yes. So when I refused to sign it, guess what I learned? There's a thing called a legal settlement. It comes out of our Sesta K Trust, whatever that is, poor people, whoever is on the county land, there's a legal settlement. That's the actual name of it. That means that the authorities can tap that account to pay for the settlement of charges. So when I refused to sign it, they did a whole bunch of hocus pocus that the county clerk had to get involved, and another judge had to get involved, and the amount I owed was zero. Because I didn't know how they paid it, but that's how they paid it. It's called a legal settlement. It said on there, legal settlement, on the paper. Okay, so now, here's the final point about the style of the name. Whoever saw the movie Trading Places with the gorilla?
That was so cool. Yeah.
There's so many messages in there, including the Department of Agriculture, which I'm still trying to figure out. I think that's who actually is harming us as well, the head of the Department of Agriculture, because they think we're cattle. So there's messages in that movie. Department of Agriculture was the report, the Department of Agriculture, the oranges. Okay, so here we have the gorilla, and they have the transport. Oh, it says there's only one, but look, there's two in there. Remember that? At the end, there was where the guy one of the bad guys had been dressed up in a monkey suit. I was being transported as a gorilla, a live animal, from the state hospital back to the county jail. The bill of lading, the transport order, was in all caps. But guess where the only place in my entire ordeal the state chose to write the name that I'm known by in upper and lower case with no middle initials? On the gorilla bill of lading, back from the state hospital after I was deemed competent to stand trial. So that proves that they know exactly what they're doing. And that's pretty much the points I wanted to make. Is there any comments that anybody want to make to each other or questions you might have?
One of the reasons why they want you to have an attorney, all right, because they're not, all attorneys are officers of the court, that there's not any difference really between the two sides, but they want you to cut a deal with the court. And so back in the shipbuilding days, they would have to cut the boards to deck the top of the ship, and each of these boards were called deals, right? So you have to cut a deal. You're literally decking the top of the Admiralty ship. And so when they refer to you as Mr., right, you're not even a swabby, right? You're just catching the mist of the ship as it's crashing through the waves.
That's good, I like it. Who else? No, please use it so people can hear.
This really has, with what you're talking about, and also with what Trump is saying about Canada, he wants to make Canada the 51st state. How would he go about that? Would he just inform Britain, hey, you're no longer controlling Canada, we've taken over? How would that work?
Well, I would think the people have to agree in Canada to become the 51st state under the corporation. They would have to agree. And my understanding is, from what I saw some very interesting, you know the map they're showing now with Greenland and Canada? You know they published that map, the same map in 1946 after the war? So this has been, again, think in terms of hundreds of years. If I was the British king and these colonists, imagine, most of us don't want to give up our small 50 by 100 foot lot. The King of England is going to give up the colonies? Excuse me? The colonies. But the colonies. From the 13 colonies and all the way to the Mississippi River. By the way, and in 1783, who can tell me what international crown claimed land west of the Mississippi? Not California, but like Kansas, Oklahoma. Who claimed that? Spain. That I didn't know. I had always thought, I didn't understand how France came to be control of it with the Louisiana Purchase. It was controlled by Spain. So my friend, one of my friends, he studies hundreds of years worth of history, and he explained to me what actually goes on in the back rooms with the people who think they're special, the royals who have been born into these families. And so they cut deals, and we're just chattel on the land. So they basically exchange land control through sometimes public treaties, sometimes private. So what happened, remember the French Revolution happened in the late 1700s. So now we're coming up to 1803. So something happened in Europe where France now, through a marriage, got the right to sell the Louisiana Purchase. Only 20-some years after Spain claimed that they owned it. But it was through the heads of Europe, and so that's how France was able to gain control and basically sell it. And then, of course, because certain nobles are married to the English side as well, that was just perhaps King George's long-term plan from sea to shining sea.
Who was responsible for the War of 1812?
King George was in maritime and admiralty jurisdiction. He was impressing our sailors, and on the land we were saying sorry to his bar members, And he said, what do I have to do to get Congress to agree to cancel the 1783 peace treaty? What do we have to do? Because I only promised those colonies peace on the land and the inland navigable waterways. I never said we wouldn't attack them out on the sea. So he starts attacking. Congress eventually declared war. So we formally broke the treaty, but he was basically bullying to instigate. It's like poking us. And finally they said, okay, it's on. So then, and I just happened to notice one thing, and you could get it from me or Glenn. I have the original documents certified of all the organic documents, the organic law. I have the Treaty of Peace. I have the Treaty of Ghent. And this is an important key to where I'm heading with remember, territorial jurisdiction is the king. Municipal jurisdiction is the Pope. That's how they get us. They arrest us as dead things, cargo, and we're like screaming, you don't have the right, you don't have the right. They're saying, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, you're dead, you're dead, cargo. Then we get into the district court, and she's now saying, okay, you can talk now, but wait a minute, I have to get you a lawyer. So now that lawyer is speaking. Judge.
That's representing. You know, they've got people so bamboozled that people will say, well, I'm going to court and I'm going to represent myself. Or the judge will say, are you going to represent yourself?
And when they asked me that question, what did I say? No. I said, I'll present myself. What could she say to that? I'll tell you what this little trickster did to me. When it's all over now, 2 years worth of false arrest, false imprisonment, sending me to a mental institution to test if I'm competent to stand trial. And I kept demanding trial by jury, trial by jury, trial by jury. Didn't know to take it to a federal court. Don't make a federal case out of it. Why? Because then you're still in our jurisdiction. That's why you don't want to do it. That's why we tell you don't make a federal case out of it.
You know, I just want to make a comment. From time to time you'll see some young'un does something or is accused of something. First of all, I don't believe if a policeman swears on his father's grave, I don't believe that he's telling the truth. Second of all, I don't believe the judges are upholding any local office if they even take one. But they'll bring some kid in, and the judge will say, we're going to try him as an adult. All right, so the first act of the court is what? To commit a fraud upon the people and the jury. And the second one, you know, because he's not an adult. He's either an adult or he's not. So they're going to try him as an adult when he's not an adult. That's a fraud upon the court.
So are we brain dead, Joe?
I mean, really. And then the second one is, where's your presumption of innocence?
Doesn't matter. He was arrested in Maritime. He can't speak. We have to give him a lawyer, and they decide for the cargo what's going to happen. The gorilla had no choice but to stay in the bar, under the bars. So, who here has their passport? Raise their hand. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. 1.
Me?
No. But you do have one.
I just turned it in for you.
Okay.
I'm in the process of,
I know you are, Jason. I appreciate you.
well, and I met with the guy to this process to hopefully get a 5-star passport.
I understand.
What does that buy you? I have no clue.
It buys you a lot of protection because you're carrying your passport card instead of this, which is for international travel. That passport card is your sign to him that you're on the land and you're protected by this Constitution and the laws of the United States made pursuant thereof, which means he'll be committing a felony if he does anything to you, unless he's seen you commit an actual felony.
He has a 3-star passport and wants to upgrade his to a 5-star. And him and this girl that I know got pulled over by a cop. They're doing 82 and a 70. And the guy pulled him over, and he identified himself with that. And then the guy went back to his car. He turned his lights off, and then he pulled up behind him, kind of beside him, and then got out and said, "Listen, I'm not detaining you. I'm sorry, just slow down next time."
He had already committed a felony, which is Glenn's point. The minute the cherries go on, they've committed a felony.
The lights, legal use of emergency lights.
Because they've commanded one who is the sovereignty of the state to surrender their sovereignty. That's why. So in fact, you know, there's lots of ways we can tell them ahead of time, leave us alone. If on the back of that car, there was some indication, you know, that wasn't like off the charts, but send a message to the police officer that 5-star on board, something of that nature. You know, they would know what that means. Maybe even I'll put a picture of my 5-star on the back of my vehicle. I'll get one that is a magnetic, so if I'm traveling in your car, you have my protection, my diplomatic protection.
Did you ever get justice for 2 years in jail?
I'm having fun. No, partially. I appeared before my city council dressed in a Halloween prison suit, black and white stripes, with numbers on the front with a cap on, and I sit there and make them for 5 to 10 minutes twice a month listen to me talk. And I embarrass them.
Do you think they're embarrassed, or they just don't?
I know they're embarrassed.
You don't think they're just going, this is a coup, just...
No, and I'll tell you why. Because they know that the previous chief of police, because of what Glenn filed with the FBI, he was at 52 years old, and at the time was a $140,000 a year job. All of a sudden, he decides to retire in 30 days. Why? The order came down. You're done. Now, have I gotten paid? No. We're working on it, but because of the contract of the state of New Jersey Constitution says our right to worship is inestimable. So the question for the jury, the question of fact, is going to be for the people of this land, does inestimable mean it's worth $21 of silver more than the entire state corporation of New Jersey is the question.
New Jersey's utterly corrupt.
I can tell you why, but my time is up. I appreciate everybody, and I hope I gave you some keys now that you can say, okay, here's a solid brick I can put on the land and start building my house of protection. But get your passport card ASAP, and we're working on the diplomatic passport. Yes.
I will say that a few years ago when I worked for a Fortune 500 company, I worked in HR, and I had 2 or 3 people that came through with the card that looks just like a credit card. It was a card passport. And when I asked, why did you get that instead of passport, every single one of them said, well, it gets me through the airport a lot faster than anybody else.
Right, because it is a official diplomatic document. The seat of government that we hired, which is the 2 stars out of the 3, Vatican, British territorial, Vatican municipality. Municipality's dead, territorial is alive, and they use the 1-2 punch. So however they capture us, then they throw us to the other side. Never until, guess what? This is our shield. We should be having, Glenn told the story about I was watching a video one time. There was a young black man in Miami pulled over by a white cop, and the young black man thought he was a free man. He rolled down his window that far, said, I'm a sovereign, this, that. The police officer was like this. He said, do you have a passport? No. But the white police officer was not doing it. He was doing it to send everybody a message he wanted to tell us. If you would have had a passport, I couldn't do this. He was a nice guy.
They also said, every single one of them, not only did they get to the airport faster, but that card, passport, got them through any airport really fast around the world. It was that recognized.
Card is better than the passport itself.
Yes, yes, and they said the reason why is because when you apply for that, they go and they do a background check.
They don't do that anymore, Francine. They put the 5-star indicator in this, the barcode. So that
Well, it doesn't matter. The point is, it gets you through the airport.
Right.